stance, then the club will come square later in the swing. Also, by moving it up my stance, I'll catch it a little bit more on the upswing, which will allow me to stay behind the ball and should throw the ball up in the air. Let me show you. Well, you might say that that'll also make the ball go shorter. Well, it does. So when you're hitting up over an obstacle, you probably need one more club to play that high shot. But also remember, when you're playing downwind is the other reason you're going to play a high shot, to stop the ball quickly on the green, so that the wind will compensate and give you the extra distance you need, and the high shot will stop the ball quickly. Most average golfers think to hit a high shot that you must remain behind the ball and also help it into the air by a good full release. Well, they're absolutely right, but the way they do it is that they leave the ball at the same place in their stance. They get behind the ball by going back to the right foot and then staying there and releasing from the top of the swing, which is casting. Something like this. Of course, they always finish the swing. Well, obviously, what's happened there is that the average golfer has lost power because he stayed behind the ball too long. He stayed on his right foot. He's casted his swing because he didn't move to his left side. What he should have done was move the ball up in his stance, opened his club face slightly. This keeps him behind the ball by moving the ball up. It also puts the loft on the club to get it up in the air. He was right, he must release it. But he moves to the left side so he gets his power too. Something like this. You can do that too. Just give it a little bit of a try. When playing in the wind, it really makes the game a lot more fun if you understand why and how to play low shots. The obvious reason that people like to hit low shots in the wind is that they want to keep the ball down out of the wind so they can keep control of it. Well, there are two kinds of wind shots. First, and the one that's probably most commonly played, is the one where a fellow moves the ball back in a stance and closes the club face. Now, what does that do? Well, number one, by moving the ball back in the stance, it means we're going to get a little bit more on the downswing. Number two, we've closed the club face that takes loft off the golf club, which means we should hit it further into the wind. And three, it's a good position to be in because we come square a little earlier in the swing. It should produce a shot that looks something like this. Now, the second method of hitting a ball low comes from taking exactly the same swing that you'd normally take with any other shot. All you do is reduce the length of the golf club and take a longer club, meaning if you have an 8-iron shot, maybe take a 6-iron and go down the shaft 4 or 5 inches and do exactly the same thing you would with any other golf shot. What does this do? Well, having less loft will keep it lower, the shorter shaft will make it go shorter, and you're not really hitting the ball quite as hard because you don't have as long a shaft, and you're going to produce less spin, which will throw the ball or keep the ball lower in the air. So here we are. Right here, normal swing. Both are very useful. The average golfer, not enough club in his hand and hits it too hard in the wind. What does it do? The ball goes out low, shoots up in the air, ends up 20 yards short of the target. Well, what he really wanted to do was use a combination of the two things I just talked about, the two lessons. One, you move the ball back in your stance, close the club face. Two, go down on the shaft. If you have a long iron shot, let's say a 1 or a 2 iron, and you move the ball back in your stance, you're not going to put a lot of spin on the ball, so you don't have to worry about shooting up in the air. And by closing the club face, you're going to put a slight draw on it, which will also help keep the ball down. As the shot gets shorter, the club lengths should vary. In other words, if I've got a 5-iron shot, I should be using a 3 or 4 iron going down the shaft. As I go to an 8 iron, I need a 6 iron and go down the shaft. As I get up to the 9 or the wedge, I take even a 7 or an 8 and go way down the shaft to take the spin off the golf ball and to be able to control it. I've got a 6 iron here. I'm going to play an 8 iron distance shot. And when you do that, you're going to have a lot more fun playing in the wind because you're going to control the golf ball. You know, golf isn't always played from tees and level lies. Sometimes we get an uphill lie, and that can be a lot of trouble. Let me show you how I play it. An uphill lie can be a very awkward shot. So to try and play the shot, I try to make sure that I do as many things with my body, the club, and my swing that will simulate being on a level lie. First of all, being on an uphill lie will put more loft on the golf club. So if I've got a 7-iron shot, why not play it with a 5-iron and just make it 7-iron length? Now all of a sudden I've got the right length and the right loft for the distance I want to go. Secondly, I really try to use the same golf swing, and I want to place the ball pretty much the same place in the stance. But I'm going to try to shift my weight so that I can make the things happen at the right time. Meaning, if I move my hips a little bit forward, that sets the weight a little bit more towards my left foot and making it easier for me to get off my right foot. I'm going to keep the weight and my hips up there a little bit. To help that, I'm also going to take the angle of my body and try to get it perpendicular to the slope. So that sets myself here with my hips up here, which should allow me to come fairly level into the ball. Okay, let's see what happens. Worked all right there. The average golfer tries to play an uphill shot in one of two ways. Usually, he will try to make sure that he gets the ball first. He tries to get his weight up on his left foot. So he moves way up here on his left side, and he hits. And what does he do is he just drives the club into the ground, and the ball never really gets up or goes anywhere. The second method that the average golfer tries, he says, well, I want to make sure I get the ball up off the hill, so he gets his weight way back on his right foot so he stays well behind the ball, and then he stays right there, and he hits it from there, and what does he do? He hits it straight up in the air and doesn't get any power. Well, obviously, the combination of the two is what we're trying to get to. He wants to get his weight forward so he can get his weight to his left side. We do that by shifting our weight to our left side here. We're going to get behind the ball so we swing level the hill by changing our body angle. So let's do that again. Hips forward, body angle back, swing the length of the hill with a club that will simulate the distance you're trying to go. Instead of a 7-iron, let's use a 5-iron and choke it down to a 7-iron length. We then are free to play the shot.